Welcome back to Mayo Clinic Radio. I'm Dr. Tom Shives.
And I'm Tracy McRae.
In 2015, the United States Department of Agriculture developed the FoodKeeper app. You have it?
I don't, but I
you
might
will.
before we're done here.
It's a smartphone tool to help reduce food waste and improve public health by sharing safe storage methods, ways that can extend the shelf life of the foods and beverages in American homes. Now, the app lists specific storage timelines for the fridge, the freezer, and the pantry for more than 500 different products. Sounds like something you ought to have.
Absolutely. Last summer, the USDA announced new updates to the FoodKeeper app. It now provides users with information on food safety recalls. Very valuable. Joining us on the phone is one of the people who helped to develop the FoodKeeper app, Christopher Bernstein. Mr. Bernstein is the Director for Food Safety Education at the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Services in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the program, Chris. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Chris, great to have you with us. So the FoodKeeper app sounds like something maybe all of us ought to have, but there must be a reason why you developed it.
Yeah, so the application itself is a digital version of a publication the USDA worked on with Cornell University and an organization called the Food Marketing Institute for quite some time. That publication is called the FoodKeeper Brochure, and it dates all the way back to the 1990s. Around the mid part of this decade, we started working on the application because interest in the physical pamphlet had declined, and we thought that on smartphones and tablets, we could incorporate a bunch of additional information that folks might want to see when they ask questions about storage, safe food handling, all of that sort of thing. And that's what we did.
Mr. Bernstein, I have to think that I always think, well, if I have to ask, should I throw this out? The answer is probably yes. But you have rules that are a little bit more specific than that.
Well, so we do say, when in doubt, throw it out. We get those. We say that very often with power outages and other sorts of things. But there are some items in your pantry, in your fridge, or in your freezer that you might look at and say, oh, I'm not sure about this. And if you consult the FoodKeeper app, you might be pleasantly surprised that a lot of those items are likely still okay.
So it gives you guidance about what you can keep for a certain period of time and what you ought to throw away.
Exactly. So the app itself has nearly 600 unique products in there, anything from rice to ground beef to fish to coffee to sugar. And it has storage guidance based on what is optimal for those products. So obviously sugar you can leave in your pantry, but ground beef you would want to put in your fridge or your freezer. So we offer storage guidelines based on the optimal storage for each of those items. For the refrigerator, your ground beef might be good for a day or two, whereas in the freezer, it's actually good indefinitely. The quality may deteriorate, but the ground beef itself would be safe.
It seems like a slam dunk to add the food recall information to this app, because that's one of the things that, when you hear that in the news, you have to go back because you're driving or whatever, and you can't pay attention to exactly what that was. So is it updated right away and then it just follows the story, or how does that work?
It is. So the recall information that's now incorporated into the application comes from USDA and FDA. So that's all of the food safety recalls that come out of the federal government. You can select either to get those recalls right away, instantaneously, or you can select to get those on a daily or weekly digest. And those just pop up in the notifications section of your cell phone, tablet, any smart device that you have it installed with.
I know that there are some interesting things on the app because I've had a quick look at it, and some of the things that I think might surprise consumers, particularly the one I found interesting, is about where you ought to keep things. For example, you shouldn't keep bread in the refrigerator. You should keep it in the pantry. Things like that.
Exactly. Lots of items. I was surprised first when we started working on the application, where I saw similar things. Potatoes are really best in the pantry. So are tomatoes, which before I started working on the application, I just put tomatoes in the refrigerator, and that actually takes away some of the taste from them. So now I correctly store them on my counter.
The only thing better than a room temperature tomato is a garden temperature tomato, and that's the best.
right off the vine, right?
Yeah, who's Karen and what is she all about?
So Ask Karen is USDA's virtual representative. It is a question and answer system of about 1,500 of our frequently asked questions that we've compiled over the 30-plus years that our meat and poultry hotline has been asking consumer questions about food safety. So folks can search our frequently asked question database within the application if they have general questions. How long should I cook a hamburger to? Is it safe to store my Thanksgiving turkey in the freezer? How long is that safe for? And then there's also a live Q&A system within the Ask Karen component of the FoodKeeper app. So if somebody has questions, they can talk to a live food safety expert here at USDA between 10 and 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
Well, now that's pretty neat.
I love it. Is this app free?
It is. The app is free. It's available on the Google Play and on the iTunes Store. We recently, as you mentioned, updated it. So now we're in version 6.0 or version 7.0. So lots of really, really helpful information in there.
It is taking all of my self-control to not grab my smartphone and load the app while we're talking. I'm trying to show some great restraint. Hey, I see that you can also get cooking tips on this app as well.
Yeah, so for some of the products, produce, grains, those sorts of things, you don't have to do very much to prepare them to serve them. But for other products like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, you really do want to make sure you cook those properly. Otherwise, you may get sick.
So sorry, go ahead.
Well, so I was going to say for those products, we have cooking tips on time, temperature, any specific items folks might want to know to make sure that they're preparing those foods in a way that's going to make them as safe and wholesome as possible for themselves and their family.
Aside from the tomato mistake that you were making, putting tomatoes in the fridge, what else did you learn when you were getting this app pulled together?
Well, so what's great, I actually have a young child at home. My son is turning 2 in just a couple months.
Oh, boy.
And as you can imagine, 2-year-olds like to eat often and like to eat very diverse things. So he really likes to eat grapes right now. And what's great is that I always stored my grapes in the refrigerator, and I thought on long car trips, those grapes have been out too long. He might get sick. We have to toss them and give him something else. Grapes are actually good for about a day outside of the refrigerator. So it's great if we're driving up to my family. They live about a 6-hour drive when we're not taking stops. They live about a 10-hour drive when you have a 1.5-year-old in the car. So it's great because for that whole drive, he can just be popping grapes when he's hungry and stuff like that, getting a healthy snack, and he's going to stay safe.
Yeah, that's better than M&Ms. That's what
true.
we used to pop.
Very true.
Do you know how many people have downloaded the app? Has it been pretty well accepted? It's popular?
Yeah, so it's actually gotten a huge response from the public. We didn't really know how many folks would download it when we first launched it. And in the first month, we had over 50,000 downloads. And since its initial launch, we've had over 160,000 downloads.
Fabulous. So you go to the App Store and you put in FoodKeeper?
Correct. You can go to either of the app stores and put in FoodKeeper. You can also visit fsis.usda.gov/apps, and that has a link to the application as well.
Oh, perfect. Chris Bernstein, we've been talking about USDA's FoodKeeper app with the Director for Food Safety Education at the USDA, Mr. Christopher Bernstein. Thanks so much for being with us, Chris.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.